What you're going to be seeing today is a presentation that I've sort of seen a couple times, but I've seen it as a major presentation in New Orleans last week, and I just had to ask the authors to come up and present it here so Maine people see what is really truly happening to our state. This program, and you know, every time you see a program, people argue about its validity and all this. Well, this is made up of people's IRS filings. Every single filing, without a name, just year base. And it shows how much money people file in one state one year, and then they file the next state the next year, or how the movement of money around the country. This is really what it says. It's about the movement of money around the country. And what you're seeing here, and I'll let Travis come in and talk about it, but basically, it's phenomenal. And it's amazing when you look at states that have income tax and states that don't have income tax. It is just phenomenal. Not only is it phenomenal to see the way the money flows around the country, but you can see where the wealth goes. And everybody tells me, and I hear it all the time, let's tax the rich. If we're going to tax the rich, I ought to be the governor of Texas or the governor of Florida, because that's where the rich are going. And that's the sad part about what's happening. They buy second homes here, but they stay down in warm country for 6 months and a day before they come back. Now, I will let Travis Brown come in and explain the whole process. It is phenomenal. It's not only done by state, but done by counties. So it really reaches down. It's a phenomenal tool, and I think you're going to get an awful lot of insight out of this. It really tells Maine, if it wants to become more prosperous, it really narrows down those things that we have to do going forward. And so, what I'm going to do now, I know it might be a little early, but just move that clock, just push it 5 more minutes. Actually, I'm actually 1 after 2.
You're good.
I'm good?
Yeah, you're
okay. Carly's here, Paul Signoffy's here, so while they're here, that's all we need. So with that, I'll ask Travis Brown, the author of this humongous piece of work, because it is just phenomenal. It's multiple years. He'll explain it, he'll go through it, and then we can have some dialogue about it. Great. Thank you, Governor. Appreciate it. Welcome. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for everyone attending today. What a great pleasure it is to be back in such a great state here, the state of Maine. I want to explain that everything that we have here visually is available on a special portal that we've created at maine.howmoneywalks.com. That'll allow you to drill down and look at the 15 years of Internal Revenue Service data, search it by county, both on income and population. So again, my name is Travis Brown. I'm the author of How Money Walks. We also have a summary, the national summaries of America's biggest winners and America's biggest losers by both income and population shifts. Essentially, the migration of people and their income measured by their state 1040 tax return results. So over 134 million records from 1995 to 2010. Generally, as the governor pointed out, what it does show you are the long-term patterns for your state, for your cities, and for your region as a whole. So without further ado, we can begin to talk about New England as a region. And I start with Massachusetts because Massachusetts has been throwing off in the last 15 years just under $11 billion net loss of all adjusted gross income. That's just the combined amount of all 1040 tax return wealth that has moved from Massachusetts to somewhere else. And that's significant because within the region, that's a lot of cash and represents a good share of which that you have received into the state of Maine. But it's not America's biggest loser. Of course, we have New York. We're on New York State right here, along there, population. We show a loss of $58.6 billion net of all transfers. A New York minute has been losing about $7,400 each minute for every day for the last 15 years. Now the good news is for the state of Maine is that we show a net gain of $1.6 billion in the last 15 years. It could be much better as the neighboring state of New Hampshire reports about a gain double of that. So the good news is you have been receiving income and people transferred within the region, finding Maine as a desirable destination. The not so good news, or what news it could be better, is that you also show a loss of over $700 million straight, not within the region, but going directly to Florida. And Florida is one of those 9 states across the country where the price of work, that is the amount that you pay on your state income tax, is set at 0. There's no personal income tax. Within the region, the only state like that is New Hampshire, which also shows that gain twice as much, twice as high as your state. So we know collectively as a group that the 9 states without an income tax, if you group them over the analysis of the past 15 years, shows a collective win of $146 billion, net of all transfers and adjusted gross income. We also know the reverse is true, that the 9 states with the highest personal income tax rate or per capita income tax burden show a loss of over $100 billion as well. And within the state, we can begin to see county by county analysis and city by city analysis as well. So generally what you have here is a chance to be much better in the future than you have been in the past. You still have other factors. By no means are we saying tax factors are the only factors that go into decisions of residents. But I think earlier to the governor's point, when you look at a matter of residence, you're looking at, are you a desirable place to work? Are you a desirable place to produce and earn more? And a couple of comparisons to that effect, since there's a strong trading relationship with New Hampshire, are in order. So your state and local taxes per capita here, according to our analysis, and we have a web app that will show all that as well, is at $3,800. And expressed as a percent, your tax burden as a percent of income, it translates by our analysis at 10.26%. That ranks 9th out of 51st, including the District of Columbia. When you compare that to your regional trading partner of New Hampshire, they're about $100 less on state and local taxes overall per capita, but their taxes as a percent of their income, since their income tends to be higher, is only at 8.11%. So it's about 2% less overall tax burden from New Hampshire to Maine. By contrast, those residents that are choosing Florida as their desirable location are seeing about 1% less, but also a much different climate when they make that change. And you also see the reverse is that. The dollars that the state of Maine is attracting from places like Connecticut is consistent with the price of work, your state income tax burden being relatively low here versus that of Connecticut. Tax burden as a percent of income there is 12.27% compared to 10.26 here. And to get back to Massachusetts, we also see that as well. State and local taxes on a per capita basis tend to be much higher there than your home state here. $5,422 and an overall tax burden slightly higher than here. Why do we bring those comparisons? Well, it's not about always having what you want, but wanting what you have. And I think there are a number of measures here that your state is considering, looking for what's the right path to prosperity. Within that analysis, we can drill down and look at suburbanization effect county by county. You can see the shift on our website at maine.howmoneywalks.com that shows, for example, with county by county analysis, those counties along the coastline performing better with the attraction of people and their income than the counties in the northern tiers and western tiers of the state. So there's a lot of different applications, but it's important to point out that this is not a sample, it's not a survey, it's not an opinion. These are the actual results of the Internal Revenue Service and U.S. Census Bureau summaries over the past 15 years, and they can be a pretty good indicator of future performance as well. So with that, I'd be happy to take questions and see if this is back here working again. There we go. It's often helpful to drill down into specifics and compare you by comparisons here. For example, I mentioned New Hampshire collectively gaining $3.23 billion, just about double what you average here per year over the last 15 years. On an annual basis, an average in the state of Maine, about 107 million receiving more income than you're losing, but about double that amount for the state of New Hampshire. It gets a little bit more interesting when you can drill down into particular counties and see from that standpoint as well, that as from the point of view of Cumberland, the red counties relative to Cumberland, Maryland, shows from where they're drawing wealth, and the green areas show the other counties that are benefiting by wealth, working income leaving Cumberland, Maine. And you also see some red and green arrows there. What are those? Well, those are places out of state that are benefiting particularly just to Cumberland, Maryland. So let's zoom out and see where those arrows go. And we know not only are they going to Florida, but we know what counties in Florida. We're talking about Lee County, Florida, receiving Maine resident wealth over the last 15 years. We're talking about Sarasota, Florida. We're talking about Palm Beach County. And there's interesting trends that emerge for, based on where you have been before versus where you tend to go in the future. People tend to want to live around others who are similar to their interests. And we see these patterns, and they oftentimes continue and even accelerate in these economic times as people look for places to put their income and their prosperity where it's most welcome. So we see that trend throughout the state. We can go and drill down and answer any particular questions as you go along. Or you're free to look at the web map application at your own leisure if you have a particular interest. We have members of the press that look at metropolitan areas of just the greater Portland area or Bangor area. We have folks that want to do regional comparisons. All that is available at Maine.howmoneywalks or howmoneywalks.com to peruse at your leisure. You generally see some fascinating things about what taxpayers have said with their feet. They vote every election perhaps, but every year, every month, every quarter, they're voting also with their feet. And we see really a pretty substantial amount of income moving around the country. $2 trillion over the 15-year period, roughly equivalent to the GDP of California. About 43 million Americans moving over that process. So sometimes we field questions like, well, the majority of people stay. That may be true. A lot of people do stay and want to stay in their home area and they're proud where they grew up. But it's also true that career mobility is perhaps better and more widely dispersed than ever before. The opportunities for jobs and incomes are bigger and broader than ever before. And so we feel it's important to share this data throughout the states so that others can understand from where you're gaining and from where you're losing. It could be worse, but it could be much better. Generally, the story of it.
The issue is, to me, is both interstate and intrastate. Frankly, people are moving up from the north and west down into the southern part of the state, and those from the southern part of the state are moving out of state. But this is where it really concerns me, and it's not even the income. It's the fact that in the last 2 years, more people died than are born in the state of Maine, which means that we are losing population. And we are the oldest state in the country, which means that we have a higher percentage of the people here in Maine that are retired. And so, voila, when you say about loss of prosperity, those who have monies to move, and those that don't will stay here. And that's why that safety net needs to be larger and larger and larger